Okay, we are live streaming, so we'll wait for a couple more people to join the meeting and then we'll get started. Jonah, may I ask, I have a entity by the name of the Longs. Are they a part of your group?
Yeah, that's my brother.
Oh, okay. I will allow them to be promoted to panelist.
Thank you.
Sure. So let's see, we have Drew and John.
Hopefully this setting sun won't be too terrible.
There we go.
Hi.
Right.
Just to check before we get started, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's see. Wonder where Ann and Doug ended up. Oh, there's Ann.
We got Doug, Jared?
I do not have Doug as of yet. He is not he's not waiting in the attendees section. I'll check in with him.
I also copied and pasted the second link from that email, Jared, and sent it to Doug. Just that.
Okay, great. Thank you. He said it's not letting him join. Let me ask second. Oh, there we go. Okay, it appears that that the variance board is here. So I think we're ready to start.
Jared Smith, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay. You want to call us to order, sir?
Yeah, I can call us to order, but I am going to recuse myself. So do you want me to go through up until we do the meeting?
Yes, sir. If you could do
Okay.
the order roll call in minutes, and then we'll explain why you're stepping away, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So call to order the meeting. Today's date is October 21st. Regular meeting of the Idaho Springs Variance Board of Adjustments. Can I get a roll call?
Doug Smith,
Present.
Drew Van Doren,
Present.
Ann Zimmerman,
Present.
John Hatch.
Present.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the meetings from the previous minutes from the meeting? And I don't have the date. What was the date?
June 16th.
The June 16th meeting? Do I have a second to approve the motion? Approve the minutes?
I second.
Second to approve.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who motioned.
I did, Doug.
Okay,
Smith.
thank you.
All right, do we have any new business other than public hearings?
Wait, sir, just get a real quick vote on that. You got a motion and a second, so just, we can do it all in favor on the minutes.
How's that? Okay,
Aye.
let's do that.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right. Thank you, sir. Do you want me to handle the issue while you're stepping away, Chair Smith, which I can do, or do you want to say anything? I can handle it.
So, you know, I have had some interaction with the applicant as far as business goes. I kind of feel like, you know, if I do vote to sustain the appeal and grant him the appeal, you know, and if I do any work with the applicant in the future, it's just going to look like, it's not going to look, you know.
Got it.
So, okay.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Smith. The record will reflect that Chair Smith has disclosed what he feels is a conflict of interest in the hearing that is next on the board's agenda. As such, he will be recusing himself from all consideration and discussion and vote on the matter, not participate in the hearing of the matter at all going forward, which is fine. We do still have, I note, a quorum of the board to hear this particular hearing, and board members Hatch, Zimmerman, and Van Doren. And I know from conversations I've had about process with the board that it is board member Van Doren who is willing and able to operate as chair of this particular hearing tonight. She has agreed to do so. So with that, also, I will mention this so that she doesn't have to necessarily, so it looks like it's self-serving. Chair Van Doren, chair for this evening, don't worry, we're not displacing Chair Smith, but for this evening, Chair Van Doren is on taking care of some emergent business out of state. Not even sure that she could come, and we appreciate her doing so, that we could still operate. She is, however, on a pretty strict time constraint, has until about 6:05 Mountain Time to be with us. So we will do our best as a board to, and I'm sure the applicant will as well, to get through the evidence and testimony tonight as quickly and efficiently as possible, with time to leave the board, time to deliberate. If we fail to do that in the time we have this evening with the members that are present, we may, depends on how efficient we are, have to pick this up on another date, but I will stop talking now so you can open the hearing, start the evidence and testimony, and we can hopefully get through this in about 20 minutes or so. So Chair Van Doren, do you want to open up this hearing now?
Yes, and thank you for your understanding about the time constraints. This is a hearing on an appeal filed by the owner of 1601 Colorado Boulevard. The owner is appealing the condition placed on the certificate of appropriateness, hereinafter referred to as a COA, and that he obtained for the property from the Historic Preservation Commission. The order of the hearing this evening will be as follows. We will have a report from staff, and then the owner will be able to provide evidence and testimony. At that time, any public testimony can be offered, and then we will have an opportunity for the board members to ask questions of those who have presented, and then we will give the owner an opportunity to have the last word and final comments. At that point, we will close the hearing and the board will discuss and take action by motion. So we would like to begin with the city staff report, please.
All right, thank you very much. Chair
And
Van
Chair
Doren.
Van Doren, do me a favor and just declare the hearing as open.
I hereby declare the hearing opened.
Beautiful.
Aye.
Okay, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before you this evening, I think Chair Van Doren laid out the context pretty well. My staff report really focuses on a couple items. One, just a touch of background. I know we're under a time constraint, so I'm going to try to keep it brief and allow for questions. The HPRC voted in a split vote to approve a certificate of appropriateness in June for this development. However, in doing so, they also added a condition to their COA that states, with the condition that the logs on the exterior of the south addition be repaired and remain visible, but the addition may otherwise be integrated with the appearance of the remainder of the building, including any painting or treatment of the logs. The petitioner is appealing that condition and stating that, and I'm sure he will provide additional testimony, but stating that basically it was made an error. So the staff report really focuses on staff's opinion as to why the HPRC had the authority to place the condition. So the building was built in a Victorian style, and the addition was built outside of the period of appropriateness. It was built in 1927, and depending on which document you look at, period of appropriateness for the historic district, because this is on the National Registry of Historic Places, ends on either 1910 or 1920. There are two different verdicts on that. So the addition, though, was built in 1927 approximately, and was done in a rustic log style. So the HPRC reviewed this item, and there is a provision in the city's guidelines that talks about additions and how, if they are significant in their own right, can still be seen as, or their architecture is substantial in their own right, they can be seen as significant even outside this time of appropriateness. Excuse me, my throat's going. And that is what the HPRC did. So they determined that the addition was significant, even though it was outside the period of appropriateness, and they made their condition as follows. The other aspect of this is there's been some discussion regarding whether or not that is something that they are able to do, and because they need some rationale to make that decision. Well, the rationale was provided at the meeting. I included a little segment in my report about a timestamp on the video in which the HPRC referenced some of the federal guidelines that were then subsequently referenced by Historic Colorado, which the city, not being, we're the staff and we're trained in a number of ways, but we're not always the experts on history. So we did reach out to the state and ask them for an opinion, and they did not provide an opinion, but they provided some guidance in the form of their letter. And I'd just like to state that guidance was very similar to what was quoted at the HPRC. With that, as I know, I'm trying to make things brief. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? If there are no questions from the commission, the owner petitioner is now invited to address the council.
Okay, thank you very much. So
Jonah?
my name,
Hi, Jonah.
yes, I need
Can you
to
state
swear.
your name and address, please, for the record?
Is Jonah Hearn. It is 12259 West 77th Place, Arvada, Colorado.
Okay, and do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Okay,
you.
well, I will like to thank the commission and obviously acknowledge the fact that hopefully everybody spent a lot of time working through this appeal. It was a very lengthy document, over 200 pages. A lot of content. We've been working on through this process for the past 7 months. We've really been developing this project that will represent everything that the Idaho Springs Historic District will be. So I just want to make sure that I highlight a couple of the things that we included in our packet. The IMSA letter and business community support. You can see the list of all the businesses and business owners that signed on to that document. Also, the Idaho Springs Downtown Master Plan, which does reference this as a Victorian architecture and the need for a boutique hotel, such as what we are trying to provide. And also the design guidelines that are the guidance for the historic district, which is referenced by History of Colorado, is what should be used in determining these type of decisions. And more specifically, really the, an entry point where it really kind of establishes the district and describes the district and has many photos around the district of Victorian architecture that is highlighted in those design guidelines. And then also I'll reference, down in part 3, page 29 or 28 and 29, and then in the definitions as well, because there is a lot of debate and conversation around the annex and the addition. So that is what we are talking about. Also, the application for designation of the historic district that was dated back in 1983. In there, obviously references and defines the district as representing the late Victorian architecture that was in Idaho Springs during its golden age. And then also, of course, the letter from Chip and Jan that are founding members of the Historic Preservation Committee. And, their opinion and their, drive on why that commission was put together in order to restore the vitality of the district in the marketplace and trying to build that cohesive look under the Victorian architecture. And of course, the History Colorado, which, as Jared referred to, didn't necessarily provide an opinion, but provided a lot of direction on where to look for decision making. And of course, where to look is in the documents that I listed above. So essentially, the question that I put before you is why we're appealing this COA condition that leave the logs visible. The big thing I'd like to ask the commission is to really look at those logs, and hopefully you've seen the building as it's been going through its renovation process with removing the exterior logs from the original building and the look of the Victorian siding that's underneath. And try to ask yourself, what would that log addition represent? How would it represent the history of Idaho Springs and the historical district when it comes to the golden age there in the late 1800s to very early 1900s. Hopefully you had a chance to look at those original pictures of the Club Hotel that are dated around 1900, where really my family and I, when we saw those pictures, made us fall in love with this property as that classic Victorian hotel at the time. Even had a little sign that said Club Hotel in that photo. And that's what really kind of got us excited about this project and ready to jump in with both feet. So when it comes to looking at, that original picture, the Victorian image, knowing the history of Idaho Springs at the beginning of the gold rush and everybody coming in and building up a bunch of temporary buildings, which were log at the time, but then quickly replacing those as the railroad came in, as everything else came in more money and materials, and you got brick and clapboard siding. All this described in the documentation that established this district. So this is really what we're trying to create here. The history of the hotel has been through a lot of owners. It's been dramatically changed from its original purpose as a house that was built for a wealthy Denver couple. It eventually became that gentleman's club, and then of course the club hotel. And then really the club hotel was one of the original hotels there in Idaho Springs at the beginning, and is really one of the only remaining hotels that are left that represent that era in Idaho Springs. All the other hotels of that time have either been torn down or repurposed. And so the excitement that we have of bringing the club hotel back into existence the way it was in 1900 is absolutely the purpose and why we are appealing this COA condition. So when we look at design guidelines and we talk about new additions and accessory structures, all the nuance in there is there. Obviously, the history of Colorado, I've read through it like 4 times. You know, it kind of, it rides both sides of the fence on what is appropriate, what is not. Obviously, the big question before you guys is if the annex, the log structure, is historically significant in its own right. By being established as the original, club hotel, the Victorian building that was built in 1882 that was referenced in the application to the Interior Department, that establishes that as a contributing property, as a contributing member of the historic district. Understanding that the log structure was built obviously outside of the period of significance, and more importantly, almost 50 years after the original building was built, and radically changed the appearance of the original structure and changed the purpose of the original structure. Since that time, mostly the property has been used as a restaurant or bar. And you can kind of look through the timeline of what it's been through. And if anybody's from Idaho Springs or been there for a very long time, obviously you would have memories back in the 80s, 90s of, a small restaurant bar that people got to go to and have a good time. But really the purpose of the district, what is the purpose of the district? To build that cohesive marketplace and maintain that late Victorian architecture. So our purpose of our development plan is to restore that club hotel to that late Victorian hotel that represents the golden age of Idaho Springs. Why that building was added to the historic district was because it is one of the only remaining hotels from that time period. If you refer back to that letter from Chip and Jan that kind of referenced the purpose of the whole HPRC and why it's in existence and why the historical district is there, we once again go back to this is Victorian in nature. So that is where we're really trying to get to when it comes to understanding that is that log structure historically significant in and of itself when it fundamentally changes the nature and the appearance of the original building. And what we are trying to do is basically restore that image of the Victorian hotel that was on the property back in 1900. So the big thing, the purpose of this district, obviously, and why the Board of Variance must approve our appeal is to refer to Idaho Springs City Code, establishing the historical district and the guidelines, use that as guidance to be used by the HPRC, determining when to issue a COA. They must remove all personal bias and refer to the design guidelines and city code as stated in multiple different documents that we've submitted. When they review any application for appropriateness, it's about removing the bias and focusing on the guidelines and those guiding documents. In this case, members of the committee could not separate their personal bias for the rustic log appearance of the annex when they declared the log structure had historic significance on its own. And when we asked that, what criteria did they use? The answer was because it was old. Well, as you can read in the letter from History Colorado, that just being old is not a reason. Even if it was even built in the period of significance, that does not necessarily make it significant historically. There needs to be a purpose, because like if you just added a porch onto a property that modeled the original appearance that went with the building, did not significantly change or alter the building, that would be considered appropriate and be considered historically significant as part of the building. That is in the best interpretation that I've read through this so many times. That's what I keep coming back to. You can read from the letter, even though the addition was built, even if the building, if it was built during that period of significance, doesn't automatically grant it significance. It has to be determined by members of this board using the guidelines in the historic district city code, clearly establish this district as representing the golden age of Idaho Springs through the late Victorian architecture of its downtown and surrounding houses. So understand, my family's heavily invested into this project. We're excited about joining the community of Idaho Springs as it continues to grow and prosper, and that we are in the, in the 7 months since we purchased the Club Hotel, we have found a very strong community here that's proud of the history of Idaho Springs and its most recent accomplishments in building a strong historic Victorian marketplace. Every weekend while working on the hotel, I've engaged with residents, tourists, and everybody's had nothing but positive things to say about our objectives, especially as we've started revealing more of the building itself and kind of showing what this building is going to look like. It is a fantastic opportunity. So what I ask is this board to do its duty and correct the COA that was issued by the HPRC with personal bias, protect the purpose of the district that is described by Chip and Jan, restoring the cohesive Victorian architecture that is downtown Idaho Springs Marketplace, which is supported by the business owners in the district. So please, I ask for you to vote to approve our appeal and remove the conditions of the COA.
Thank you so much. Is there any public testimony?
I have not received any public testimony outside of the letters previously submitted. There is one attendee in the waiting room. If they have any questions, please raise your hand for providing public testimony.
So I think now we have an opportunity for questions from the board. I'll start if I may.
Sure.
Is it my understanding that you have been given permission to paint the log structure? You're not being required to preserve it as a wooden building?
No, so essentially what is in the conditions is essentially repair, and how the city's interpreted is like there's even some logs that I have to remove and build up more foundation. So all that is, basically okay under the condition. And yes, we would paint the building in order to get it to match the rest of the original building.
Chair Van Doren, I think you might find useful the interpretation of the condition from the staff who would actually administer and enforce it, and that's Planner Chipman. How are you interpreting that language? Painting okay or not?
Yeah, the condition does state the addition may otherwise be integrated with the appearance of the remainder of the building, including any painting or treatment of the logs. So yes, we would allow for painting.
Does anyone else have any board members have any other questions for the petitioner or
I,
for Jared?
no, I have something that I'd like to question, but not directly to him, about some of the documentation that we received, some of the information. But it's really more of a question to the HPRC, and I don't think we can question them. So I'm not
I
sure.
think we can discuss that after the hearing is closed, correct?
Okay.
Carmen? Whatever that is. Okay. Does
Sure.
anyone have a question directly for the owner or for Jared, for the planner? I can't see you, so speak up.
No,
You're getting
All right.
a no, Chair Van Doren. Nobody's taking that one.
Okay. No's from everyone. Any final comments from the owner that you have thought of in the last 30 seconds?
Nope. No.
All right. Well, then I will declare this hearing now closed. I'm losing an earpiece. And we have an opportunity now for discussion among the board. And if we get to that point in the next 5 or 10 minutes, we could also have a motion and a conclusion. Anne or who else is here?
Me, John.
John, Anne or John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. My stance on the matter is that the stipulation that Mr. Hearn and his associates keep the logs does instill a hardship on him, and I think that we should vote to approve his appeal. The clause that suggested that the addition be preserved as it is kind of an option. And as we've gone through, it was an addition made outside of the period of significance to match the facade that was put on the building that is now going to be removed and restored back to its Victorian glory. So to me, I think leaving the log addition, which is a major part of the building, serves, probably almost half, if not about half of the frontage on the side street. So to have, rustic log and Victorian era clash is like, you might think it's kind of cool looking in the niche way that 35-inch tires on a Lamborghini look cool, but I think that it would just not make any sense looking at the whole area. I walk past the building every day trying to imagine it half Victorian and half log structure. To me, doesn't make any sense. And I understand why that clause is there. It could have been an addition that would have been important and make sense to save, but I think keeping the log addition the way it is would kill Mr. Hearn's vision of restoring the hotel, which is not what we are here to do. So I think his vision of bringing the whole property back to a Victorian area gem is going to do our town just fine. And as mentioned in the packet, there's historical precedents of taking down other facades like the slab on this hotel and other odd storefront facades that have been taken down over the years. So it's nothing new to allow this. And so those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anne, do you have anything to add or questions?
well, in looking at all this information, it seemed to me that the decision that the historic people make about whether something has historic significance, whether an addition has historic significance, is sort of vague and arbitrary. And what they came up with as the reason why this particular addition had historic significance seems a little far-fetched to me. So I was looking in some documentation from the state of Colorado about what this so-called rustic style is that they're kind of using as the reason for why it should be preserved, then it's significant. And the definition I found was that it is characterized by a natural setting, by its natural setting and its use of log and stone for building materials, designed to blend in with the natural environment. These structures are usually vacation homes, hunting lodges, ranches, etc. Well, this clearly doesn't fit that portion of the definition because it's not in a natural setting. It's in the middle of town. I don't think rustic style defines it. And that's the way I see it. And that's what's being used to say it's significant. I have to agree with John that I'm not so sure that that was the right decision to say that it needs to be preserved in that style because of its significance.
Thank you, Anne. I'll just add a couple of more things here quickly. So I did review all of this documentation thoroughly. And you know, I think it is deliberately vague, especially when referencing the document that History Colorado sent us to. One could argue that the log facade of the lodge was character defining and removing that was inappropriate, but that is clearly a great choice, and the Historic Preservation Committee was in favor of that. If the Historic Preservation Committee had insisted that the log portion be restored and kept natural or rustic, as Anne pointed out, I think we might have a longer conversation. But once those logs are painted to match the rest of the building, that any sort of significance sort of disappears under a coat of paint, in my opinion. And so I am in favor of removing that restriction. And Carmen, am I able now to call for, or may I move that the restriction on the COA be removed, and the project be allowed to continue with the Victorian clapboard that the owner would like to put on that building?
Sure.
May I do that?
Thank you, Chair Van Doren. Let me help you a little bit by
Thank you.
by picking you have two sort of options that I know and appreciate you're in a time crunch, Chair Van Doren. On the last page of Planner Chipman's staff report, page 505, there are potential motions for you for either decision that were on the table tonight. And the second of which is, and I'm going to read this, Chair Van Doren, and if you feel like you want to make this, when I'm done, just say so moved. I move to remove the HPRC's condition to keep the exterior logs visible on the entire southern addition at 1601 Colorado Boulevard.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
I think I heard Anne.
They've been tying all night, the two.
I know, they're eager. May I have a vote? Everyone in favor? Aye.
Actually, Drew, could you do
No.
a roll call on that, just because it's a final kind of important vote on this one?
All right. Anne, how do you vote?
I'm in favor. Yes.
Okay.
John, how do
Yes.
you vote?
Okay.
I'm also in favor.
Okay, that motion
Motion
then passes
carried,
3-0.
and-
Yes, ma'am.
And the condition shall be removed, and
Yes,
we
ma'am.
are eager to see what happens with the hotel. I would like it to be purple, please. And I believe that our meeting is adjourned.
We need a motion.
She could declare it adjourned here at
Okay.
6:08. Thank you, Chair Van Doren, for stepping in.
Thank you so
Chair
much.
Smith.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, board members Hatch and Zimmerman and Mr. Hearn, and everybody for coming. Appreciate everybody's time tonight and for being efficient. So,
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Good.
Thank you, thank you.
Good luck, Mr. Hearn.
Thank you.
good night,
Best of
everybody.
luck.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.